I fully believe that this is a push for our own future digital enslavement.
We got another small town out there being blindsided by a big tech data center, and the local residents are told to just sit down, shut up, and accept it. In Conway, Arkansas, they're planning a 336-acre data center. It's going to be over 300,000 square feet. It's going to cost over $1 billion. And here's the kicker. The developer is Forge Lot Ventures, but they are acting on behalf of a secret Fortune 100 company. Think about this. The local residents are being told they are not allowed to know who's actually running this, who owns it, who's in charge of it. Just accept it.
We're tracked and controlled the things we purchase, where we go, what we're allowed to do, what we're allowed to say on social media. And to me, that sounds a lot like Revelation 13 and Daniel chapter 2. That's what's coming. Enslavement through tracking, enslavement through your money being worth less, and enslavement through what you're allowed to buy and speak about.
Hey friends, welcome back. Thank you so very much for tuning in. Sean from SGT Report here. First, SGTreport.com is live once again. My thanks to my webmaster for helping us. What a debacle. A hacker had exploited the cPanel software and taken down thousands of websites, including the Phaser and the LibertyMill.com. Thanks for sticking with us, guys. Friends, if you're following the data center debacle, well, you're over the right target, because this is our warning for humanity. Did you know that very soon the data centers in Texas will consume more electricity than all Texas homes combined? Don't listen to the propaganda from Kevin O'Leary. Believe me, we cover his shtick in this one with my new guest, Matt Long. He's a Christian, a father of 9, an activist, and a property developer, and he knows what he's talking about. If you're concerned about AI data centers, which are really Israeli track and trace surveillance centers, this is the broadcast for you. Share it far and wide. Before we start, just a quick word. If you're taking fish oil for heart, joint, and memory support, here's something you need to know. Research shows fish oil is 50% less absorbable than krill oil because fish oil's omega-3s are in triglyceride form, where krill oils are in phospholipid form, which is the same format your cell walls are made of. That means krill oil gets into cells immediately. In head-to-head studies, krill oil outperformed fish oil at improving cholesterol, reducing inflammation, and easing joint pain, often at lower doses. Native Path Antarctic krill oil is sourced from pristine Antarctic waters, contains the powerful antioxidant astaxanthin, and comes in a tiny soft gel. No fishy bumps. For my special bundle offer plus free shipping, head to getkrill.com/SGT. That's getkrill.com/SGT. You can try it risk-free with a 365-day money-back guarantee. The link is below. Hey friends, welcome back. Thanks so much for tuning in. Sean from SGT Report. Just a couple of cleanup news items at the front. I want to thank everybody for bearing with us. SGTreport.com, thephaser.com, and the LibertyMill.com have been down now for around 48 hours. Hackers exploited a cPanel software glitch and took down thousands of websites starting in early May. Now, our website, SGT Report, and the other two were immune to these attacks until just the past few days. And it's been brutal, guys. It's been absolutely brutal. We work with a company called Liquid Web, and they're very good at what they do. And it took 2 full days to try to suss this out and get the websites restored. SGTreport.com is back. The Liberty Mill is back in part, and the Phaser is still being worked on. But thank you so much, guys. These demons do not want the truth out there. So if I had to guess, I'd say these are CIA adjacent or Mossad adjacent hackers. Certainly not Iranians taking down the truth. I think the Iranians, frankly, are putting up more truth than we see from our own government. And with that, I just want to share this post. Down in the state of Kentucky, more money has been poured into the congressional race by Zionists and Jewish elements like the ADL, etc., than any other congressional race, maybe in history, but certainly in memory. And I just want everyone to know, especially the knee benders and the shills, that Thomas Massey wants Epstein's friends in handcuffs, while his opponent, Ed the Zionist, is funded by Epstein's friends. Real news 24/7 at sgtreport.com, guys. Thanks so much for being with us here today. We're going to talk about AI data centers. What are they really? Are they Israeli backed track and trace centers? Or is it just as benign as Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary wanting to go from a multi-millionaire to a multi-billionaire? There's so much more to the story, and we're going to break it down today with my new guest, a friend of the show, Matt Long. He and I share a mutual friend in Dave Weiss, who introduced us. And this man, Matt Long, is a Christian, a father of nine, real estate developer, a member of the Hood County Development Commission, and an advocate for the folks living in that county. And here's his lovely wife and baby, 9 children. Good on you, sir. Matt Long, how are you?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. That is probably the thing that defines me the most as a man is being a father of nine. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. And just so people know, your website is rejectbigtech.com, correct?
That is correct. Rejectbigtech.com. That's where anyone, especially in Hood County, which is where I live, Hood County, Texas, can go to find out all the particulars of all the developments that are trying to come into that area, whether it be data center, power plant, solar farm, battery storage, a number of different industrial energy based developments. It also has a lot of good information if you're not in Hood County, and obviously Reject Big Tech is kind of general, so that hopefully it could grow and work for people not just in our county moving forward. So
Well, you stand for your family first. No, let me take that back. I bet you stand for God first, then family, then the people, the human beings that live in your county and our nation. And I just want to point out for folks that people like Peter Thiel, they do not stand for families. In fact, Peter Thiel has been, what has Peter Thiel been flying around talking about? Is it,
yeah, if I remember, he was going around doing some seminars on the Antichrist,
thank you. That's
if I
right.
do remember correctly. And yes, you bring up that I am in a firm stance here, obviously for God, family, and it turns out that when you're aligned with God and family, you can be an advocate for others as well when you're on the right side of an argument, which I feel that we are here.
Well, not only are we on the right side of the argument, many of us who are now studying this topic in earnest, AI data centers, have come to conclude that these are not just, by the way, guys, as you all know, we've survived throughout human history without these AI data centers and without AI. And some of these guys, like Peter Thiel, have openly admitted they are summoning the beast. Now, Elon Musk would tell you he's against all of this, good cop, bad cop. We'll get our friend Matt Long's ideas on that in just one second. But just to square up the conversation, I want to play this from Candace Owens, who in her latest talked about this topic, and she drops a terrifying revelation. Listen closely.
High-powered artificial intelligence centers all across the United States. That's what's happening. But the question is, to what end? Okay, what is the actual goal? It's obviously evil and dystopian. If you're not aware of that, you have to wake up to it, okay? The aim, to me, appears very clearly to be a surveillance state. Like I said, they want what China has. They want to monitor all of us. You're seeing that already at the airport, right? Like how many pictures can be taken, that they're trying to learn your face. Every single person needs to have a digital ID and this ID, and we can know every second where you're going. That's going to require some data centers. There is an unholy alliance between the military and our press, trying to convince us that this is fine, that it's normal, that we're being thrust into a state where we won't even be able to turn on our cars without government approval, right? They already can shut down a large portion of cars automatically, the newer ones. They can just literally, while you're driving, shut that down. But they want more. They want to know where you are every second of every day, what you're thinking, what you're writing, who you're speaking to.
Guys, let me pause it there. I couldn't more highly recommend you all go and listen to Candace Owens. If not on a daily basis, listen to that last one, which I think was on Thursday. And let's take a look at the comments. What are people saying about this? Huh. Indiana says she should know she works for the beast. Folks, I got to tell you, the lines have been drawn, and the line between good and evil now has never been more clear to me in my life on this planet, Matt. What do you make of it? To what end? What is the goal? They want what China has, according to Candace Owens, and I concur entirely.
Well, starting with other topics that I know you and I agree on, we found out a long time ago that it is a good versus evil issue here. And if you don't have a good versus evil mindset, you're not going to have the discernment that's going to get you through this crazy age in which we currently live, because that is the fight we are fighting. And people like yourself, Candace Owens, others that have been in these crowds and looked at these other topics for so long can literally see this from like 10,000 miles away and are screaming and yelling because, in my opinion, like the boomer generation just doesn't have the ability, for the most part, to see this coming. And that is the people that are in charge right now. And so I don't think it takes much for the puppet masters and the controllers to pull something like this over that generation. So I do believe it's the next generation that is here in order to hopefully start something new, hopefully tug it in the other direction for a little bit. But she mentioned the future surveillance state. I fully believe that this is a push for our own future digital enslavement, where we are controlled the things we purchased. We're tracked and controlled the things we purchase, where we go, what we're allowed to do, what we're allowed to say on social media. And to me, that sounds a lot like Revelation 13 and Daniel chapter 2. So I believe these things are biblically prophesied, and it's been my position from the beginning that even if these things are to happen, I do not want to comply. I don't want to be part of the system that ushers these things in. And you mentioned Kevin O'Leary, who, the guy's spiritual depth is about as shallow as a kiddie pool. He to me, he does not put off the aura of someone who understands spiritual things or even considers spiritual things. And these are the type of people that are pushing this thing forward. They're either not attuned to it spiritually, or they are attuned to it spiritually, and they're purposely ushering this in. So that's where I think the danger comes with this fight.
Well, the danger also comes from the pollution of our air, the depletion and pollution of our water sources, and the extreme amounts of energy these things are going to use. And again, folks, to what end? To what end? I think any thinking person knows. And I just want to point out that in Utah, there are a couple of gals taking Kevin O'Leary to task for what I would call his lies. And we'll get to some of this in just one second. But first, I want to play this clip because it's only 2 minutes long, and it features some of the insane statements Kevin O'Leary has made. And by the way, Tucker Carlson took him to task. And Tucker Carlson basically said to him when Kevin O'Leary said, look, we need to win this AI arms race before China does. That's the choice we have. To which Tucker Carlson basically said, no, we don't. If they want a track and trace lockdown system that's even more tyrannical than what they have, and you're on board with that, move to China. So here's what I wrote when I retweeted this, guys. Shark Tank twat Kevin O'Leary is a multi-millionaire who wants to be a multi-billionaire. So, data centers.
Kevin O'Leary asks Utah an intriguing question. What if you give me 40,000 acres of untaxed land twice the size of Manhattan for a data center that will use more power than the entirety of Utah currently, raise nighttime temperatures by 26 degrees, threaten the local ecosystem, and in return I'll provide enough jobs to raise the total job pool in Utah by 0.07%? What do you say, Utah? Oh, everyone hates it?
We think over 90% of the protesters are actually not people that live in Utah. They're being bussed in, paid by somebody, I don't know who.
That's right, Big Clean Air and Big Utah Endangered Bird is paying thousands of dollars to bus in protesters, which Mr. O'Leary must know because it was probably the same bus that brought him in from French. O'Leary was able to get the project approved unanimously through an obscure state agency known as the Military Installation Development Authority, as well as the Box Elder County Commission, both of whom did not allow public comment during proposal meetings. After nearly 4,000 people lodged objections to the project, the complaints have suddenly gone silent. That's either because everyone has changed their mind, or Utah has changed the process to where all previous complaints have been invalidated, and to lodge a new one you have to pay $15. Paywalling the complaint process to a foreign billionaire's tax-exempt data center in your backyard is probably the best encapsulation of American democracy that I've ever heard. The project will require 9 gigawatts of power, which, according to this helpful webpage from the Department of Energy, Oh wait, never mind, that was deleted within the past 6 days. But for context, that's about as much as the entirety of New York City uses on a peak summer day. The project will produce the thermal load equivalent to 23 atomic bombs worth of energy being dumped into the local environment every day, which will increase local temperatures by 5 degrees during the day and up to 26 degrees at night. This comes amidst a major backlash to data centers, as short-sighted Americans are more worried about frivolous nice-to-haves like clean water, breathable air, and lower utility costs, instead of what really matters, like the net worth of foreign billionaires and sticking it to the Chinese. So, will this near unanimous opposition prevent the building of the Shark Tank guy's data center? Honestly, probably not.
Okay, so here's the problem, and we will dig up a clip between Tucker Carlson and Kevin O'Leary before this conversation is over. But the problem is this, guys. We don't need these damn things, and the one in Utah is 60 square miles. But Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, even if that one is somehow defeated, there's, what, 5,000 of these things planned around the United States?
Yeah, I think it's similar to when we went through COVID. Their goal was not necessarily to get everybody vaccinated, but if they could get 90 to 95% of the people vaccinated, then they had, accomplished their goal. And so in real estate in general, which is my expertise, you have deals that live and die and drop off, and that's just the natural way of things. And so I think one of the efforts here is to throw as many as they possibly can at the wall, see what sticks. And what I found out is, yes, we have a major battle here in Hood County, and I believe we're actually battling the largest collection of data centers in the country currently. We're up to 8,000 plus acres between 8 different projects. And so hopefully not all of them go. In fact, my goal is to get none of them to go. But we are fighting a similar battle everywhere in Texas and beyond.
It's a brave new world, Matt. And could you have foreseen this 10 years ago? Had you ever even thought this would be a problem we'd be dealing with in the year 2026?
A year ago, I wouldn't have thought this to be the case, but I was just sitting at my home, minding my own business, and I get a phone call. I live on the Brazos River, so Hood County is a very rural county. You can see it down there. And we purposely moved to a rural area because we didn't want to live in the city anymore. We didn't want to be by industrial growth. We didn't want city type air pollution and things like that. And so I get a phone call and says that there is a data center that wants to go in across the river. And that perked up my ears because I was not pro data center at the time or ever. And turns out when I started digging in, there were a couple more. And since then, a few more have applied to be in this county. And similar to all other counties, we're having a very hard time getting our county commissioners to just say no to these things. They've been convinced through lawyers and politicians that they don't have the ability to say no. And that's simply not the case. There are a lot of patriotic, brave county commissioners out there that have said no, that have passed moratoriums, that have said, we're not going to do this in our county. You brought up the fact that these things destroy the air, they suck up the water, they use our power before we do, so the price of ours goes up, and they take our land. 8,000 acres, that's the size of 5 NASA space centers, which in my opinion is also a waste of land. But it's in our county of 40,000 people, we're going to have something the size of 5 NASA space centers. And just one of these projects sits on 2,100 acres. It requires 4 gigawatts of power. And there is currently not a single power plant in Texas that produces 4 gigawatts of power. And we have another project, the exact same size, 5 miles south of there, plus 6 others of varying size and power requirements. So it is an absolute tragedy. It literally defies logic. We go to our county commissioner meetings over and over and over, and we tell them all of these things, and they know all these things, and they would even self-admittedly say that they don't want these things in our area, but they're completely unwilling to stand up and say no. The way commissioner courts work in Texas is you've got 5 members and the majority wins. So you need 3 votes to pass something or deny something. We have 2 commissioners on our side currently that vote with us, and we have 3 that do not. So it makes it very difficult to say no to these things. We're obviously saying no as a people and as residents, but our leaders are just not brave enough at the moment to do so.
Okay, so let me ask you this because I did watch fairly closely what happened in Utah when I would say close to 1,000 people, maybe not that many, but it sure looked like a lot of folks filling a gymnasium to stand up to those 3 commissioners in Utah. And people were seething, so angry. Nobody wants this. And then the 3 commissioners left the gymnasium because I guess they felt a little threatened, went into some back room. We're still on TV, closed circuit TV, and affirmed this thing. They voted, all 3 commissioners voted yes. And I guess I would ask you this. If people are so easy to buy, allegedly, I'm alleging those guys are bought and paid for one way or the other. If people are so easy to buy when it comes to 3 commissioners, or in your case, 5 commissioners, where in the heck is the governor of Texas? Where's the state Senate on this?
So, in my opinion, in the state of Texas, we are experiencing a systematic silence from the governor, from the attorney general, from the folks in leadership. And the reason it's so strategic is because the legislature for the state of Texas only meets once every other year for about 3.5, 4 months. And all of these projects started coming into counties, not into cities, into counties where there's very little regulation, started coming into counties immediately following the last legislative session, so that there was almost a year and a half before the state would officially be in session to do anything about it. And the governor refuses to call an emergency session, which he could do, and come up with some legislation to help some of these small communities. Now, because of that, it is forcing these counties to deal with a level of sophistication on the development side that they are not used to dealing with. Hood County, for example, has one guy, and that is their entire development department. And he's used to, reviewing neighborhood plats and septic systems. He now has a single project that has 40 million square feet of air-conditioned space in it. How is it even possible for one guy to be in charge of all that? Well, it's not. And again, it was strategic. The governor wants these things to come, and in my opinion, he's going to be silent all the way up until next legislative session. All of these projects that go through, maybe 50%, maybe 30%, they all get grandfathered in. And then he becomes the hero and will do, legislation to protect the people from data centers and from sucking up all their water. But I guarantee you 100% it will not apply to any of these projects that have already gotten in.
And by the way, just so everyone listening fully understands, not only are they going to cannibalize our air, water, and energy, these things aren't going to create any jobs, not any lasting jobs. I mean, we're talking what? A handful of jobs, a couple hundred jobs at most. I mean, they're going to make the argument that, lots of new jobs to build these surveillance AI beast system centers. But once they're up and running, sorry, guys, it's back to serfdom for we the people. There's no jobs to be had here, Matt.
You're 100% right. There will be thousands of jobs during the construction phase, but these are not local construction jobs. Maybe a small percentage. These are going to need to be sophisticated commercial contractors that come in and build these projects. So it's going to be people from out of town coming in, wrecking these small towns like Granbury, which has been voted best small town in America like 3 years in a row. Our industry here is tourism. And if there's no hotels, and if all of our streets are being destroyed by construction equipment, by thousands of workers, by man camps everywhere you look, it's not going to be an exciting place to come in. We have one project called Project Patriot, which, similar to this deal in Utah, the city council had signed non-disclosure agreements with the developers. They had a meeting on January 6th of 2026 to annex in 2,100 acres to the city. The reason they did this was because they knew a data center development was coming there. All the people knew. We showed up at this meeting. We packed the entire room. We were flowing out into the hallway, into the lobby. because a power plant application had been made for that property. And if you know anything about data centers, you know they come with power plants. So we had found a power plant application in June of the year before, so 6 months prior. And then they had this meeting, and in the meeting, you were allowed to come speak about the annexation. But if you mentioned data center, you were asked to stop talking about data centers and redirect your conversation about simply annexation. So the annexation passed. The land now comes into the city. Well, we did a public information request and found out that there was a letter of support written from the city manager to Bilateral Energy, who is the power group. We also found out they went on a data center tour right before this meeting. So we caught them in their lie. You know, what they will say is they said there are currently no applications for any projects on this property, but the goal is ultimately a power plant and a data center. And this data center, this is the one one of the ones I'm speaking about, which will require a power plant larger than any power plant that currently operates in the state of Texas, right on the top of the hill that overlooks the best small town in America. It's 160 feet elevation wise, higher than beautiful downtown Granbury. So if we want to be a light on a hill, we're just going to have, it's going to be a nice industrial glow over our city and the surrounding area. And that's what we're going to be known for. Not the best small town, but the most digital, it's not going to be Granbury. It's going to be like Googleberry or Gigaberry moving forward. And so it is a major problem. These officials signing NDAs, that's a major problem. These officials thinking that these companies are going to come in and only do, say, phase one and not expand to phase two. You brought up air, and the power plants that come with these things are absolutely atrocious. Hood County already has a number of power plants here, and we're already at the point where we are going to have to start testing our vehicle emissions when we get inspections and registrations for our car. And we are out in God's country. We are not in downtown Dallas or downtown Fort Worth. We are experiencing an influx here, and I think we have all the right in the world to say no. This does not fit in this area, and we're not having it.
Well, and let's be real clear. Not only do we have the quote unquote right to say no, we have the duty. Every single person listening now needs to get engaged. I think this may be the most seminal topic of our time, more important than the bioweapon masquerading as a vaccine, because this thing is going to be forced on everybody, whether you like it or not. Whereas the bioweapon, you had the choice not to take it. Now, I know only about 15% of the people like me and probably Matt didn't take it by choice because we're not stupid. But sadly, most of our brethren in this country are so dumbed down, Matt, that they're not going to pay attention to this until it's too late. And I'm sorry, but this thing, to me, this is much worse than an invading army. It really is, because an invading army can be fought by every single person with a weapon. Once these things are up, it's going to be very, very hard to defeat. And then add to that a Palantir type track and trace system where it wants to go after patriots, who, by the way, now you have a character named Sebastian Gorka in the Trump administration labeling people like Tucker Carlson a potential domestic terrorist. This is my point. What if they bring out the drones like they did in Palestine and in Gaza to target whoever Palantir says is an enemy of the state? I'm not being hyperbolic here, Matt.
No, you're definitely not. In fact, my wife is Canadian, and so we lived in Canada for a couple of years. We got to experience Canada when they fell in love with COVID and communism, and man, they just loved it there. People with garbs, masks, vaccination requirements, and all those things, and people calling in neighbors, people checking on you to make sure you're quarantining, and it was all a big ruse. Like, it was like you pull back the curtain and there's nobody there. There was actually no consequences for standing up and saying, no, I don't want to. But like you said, they got that 85%. And I think about how we escaped Canada. Like, we literally left Canada feeling like we were escaping oppression. And at the time, I was highly I felt like people leaving Canada at that time should have been granted refugee status. That's how bad it was. And you brought up this idea of autonomous weaponry, and the reason I brought up Canada is because we were involved with the trucker convoy. We had sent our motorhome down there to help blockade with a couple of Jess's brothers. And as you know, people who participated in that, some of them got their bank accounts shut down. They literally got their money turned off because of their freedom of speech and their freedom of assembly, and because they didn't agree with the mandates at the time. I remember Justin Trudeau saying mandates are a way to avoid further restrictions. It was one of my favorite quotes from him during that time. But this relates to Anthropic, for example, which, if you know anything about Anthropic, I'm pretty sure they have Claude AI. That's their AI. And they were in negotiations with the Department of Defense or the Department of War for them to use their AI with their war effort. And there were two things that Anthropic said you guys are not allowed to do. One of them is you were not allowed to use this on US citizens. And the second one is you're not allowed to use it with autonomous weapons without having human intervention. And what they mean is they didn't want anyone to be killed based on their algorithm without a human approving it. The Trump administration they did not agree with this. In fact, they sued Anthropic because of this, and they even put them on a do not do business list that no American company has ever been on. So if you don't think that it's going to start happening here, in my opinion, it already is. If you've heard of flock cameras and the way these things track people, flock cameras is something we recently voted out of our county. But the combination of flock cameras, digital money, digital ID, and these data centers to be the backbone to help track all of them, that is the formula that equals our future surveillance state. And yes, like you said, these things are a major issue because of health, because of air, because of water. But the underlying issue is something I disagree on a moral level, on moral principle with these data centers. And it is, I do not want to usher in a future surveillance state and give up my sovereignty and my freedom.
Sorry for the quick break. A bombshell study just revealed that GLP-1 drugs don't actually work the same for everyone. Your genes determine whether the injections work at all and whether you'll suffer the side effects, like blindness. At nearly $1,000 a month, that's a brutal gamble millions of Americans are unknowingly taking. That's why I think you're going to be obsessed with GLP-1 Elevate. Instead of a pharmaceutical gamble, it uses clinical studied plant-based ingredients like metabolate to help your body naturally boost its own GLP-1 signals, the ones controlling hunger and fullness. No prescription, no needles, no genetic lottery, no terrifying side effects. You'll get fewer cravings, you'll feel fuller faster, and you'll actually keep the results without the metabolic crash. Get 51% off right now at trimwithsgt.com. Every order includes free VIP coaching for life, a 60-day money-back guarantee, and free express shipping with subscription. Head to trimwithsgt.com right now before the offer expires. The link is below.
The underlying issue is something I disagree on a moral level, on moral principle with these data centers. And it is, I do not want to usher in a future surveillance state and give up my sovereignty and my freedom.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel like you did fleeing Canada, that anyone wise enough at this point to look, if we lose this fight, people are going to need to emigrate somewhere out of this nation. And I hope there are other nations that will take us in as refugees, because honestly, I feel like Trump is a Trojan horse. And just to drive that point home, folks, for the mega trust the plan crowd, if Biden was doing this, imagine the uproar. But since Trump's doing it, I don't know. I guess trust the plan. By the way, because of the shutdown of the Straits of Hormuz, because of Trump's decision to launch a war against Iran, which his generals warned him against, now we're going to have not only oil shortages, we're going to have lubricant shortages. You will not be able to potentially not be able to change the oil in your car in the future. But that's perfect for the powers that ought not be, because they've already put in kill switches in all 2026 vehicles, so that if your car, by watching you as you drive, thinks you're drunk or are acting erratically, it can and will shut down your engine. And by the way, the government can do it too, equipped with government kill switches. Meanwhile, heating oil costs have surged. I thought I saw 56% year over year the other day, Matt. According to this Copilot search, 88% year over year. So amidst the soaring energy costs, we've got data centers nobody wants, which are going to eat up more energy than has ever been expended on anything in American or human history. So Harrison Smith notes that ticks are destroying wild animals so you can't hunt them. Yes, the Bill Gates genetically modified ticks. Boy, do tick checks every single day on you, yourself, your kids, folks, your loved ones. The chemtrails are poisoning the ground so you can't grow food. The data centers are the infrastructure of the digital control grid, and the purpose of the Iran war was to shut the strait and cause shortages and rationing. And the anti-Semitism push is to criminalize speech and resistance. I'll play this clip
Right.
between Tucker and Kevin in just one second. I'm coming back to you, Matt. Your comments on that, because I think Harrison's right.
Yeah, I mean, all things that Harrison listed, we agreed to none of them, right? And it's a funny joke that I've seen is like, okay, there's still no weapon, and now the strait is closed. Weren't we just better off when there was no weapon and the strait was open? Because it's us that have now closed it. And you mentioned trust the plan, which is funny because I was at a data center meeting the other night. It was like a panel, and people were asking, like, what do we do next? And there were people who were in the crowd that are opposition to us, meaning they're lawyers for these groups that we're standing against. And so I had to say, look, in the interest of strategy, we obviously don't want to say everything right here. And I said, I hate to say trust the plan because that got me one time before, but you're going to have to trust the plan as we, move forward to fight these things because we don't want to give away our playbook in public. And, I think about that, trust the plan, and how our other option was Kamala and Kamala Harris. And so everyone thought, oh, Trump is the right guy for the job when they obviously threw Kamala in there knowing that she would lose. Like she was not a real candidate. Even the way they threw her in there is arguably illegal. And I think the point was to get Trump elected. And I didn't know why at the time. I even voted for Trump. But obviously, the goal was to get this push forward, this agenda, this digital enslavement. So, I think about, you mentioned cars and vehicles shutting off, and you think about Elon Musk, who has control over more electric vehicles than anybody in the world, and those could literally be used as weapons. This is something I've thought of a lot. When an electric car catches on fire, it's a major deal. And for someone to be able to control where those go and maybe control if they explode or not, that's a dangerous thing to think about. And I think the heating oil issue, that's another push to get us to use more electricity. And it looks so illogical unless you have a good versus evil mindset and they're trying to usher in enslavement, because that's what's coming. Enslavement through tracking, enslavement through your money being worth less, and enslavement through what you're allowed to buy and speak about.
Well, and let me just add to the conversation for folks that don't recall this, and I think I have the name right. I'm going off memory, but Rolling Stone journalist Michael Hastings, folks, look into the death of Michael Hastings, who was being very critical of a general in the U.S. military, and his car appears to have been overtaken, hacked remotely, and driven at high speeds, like 100 miles an hour through residential areas, slamming into a tree. The engine was expelled some 100 yards away from the vehicle. It is the most bizarre story. And that's technology they had I think close to 7 years ago at this point, maybe longer, maybe 5 years. But look
Wow.
into the assassination of Michael Hastings, folks. Now, think of what they're going to do now that they have kill switches in vehicles. And by the way, before I play this clip between Tucker and O'Leary, Do you think that's accurate? These data centers could increase temperatures at night by 28 degrees. Let that sink in if it's true. 100-degree sweltering heat in the state of Texas in the midsummer. And if you live near one of these, you're talking 128 degrees. I mean, these people obviously don't give a damn about climate change. We know that's a lie, but now the lie is as transparent as it's ever been.
Absolutely. I've seen some studies that suggest that it's possible. 16 degrees is the number that I had heard, but again, it obviously depends on the size of facility. And from what I understand, that facility that raised it 16 degrees was somewhere in like the 1 million square feet range. And one of the ones that I'm focused on here is around 40 million square feet. And it's located near an airport. And you tell me what that does to thermal pockets for airplanes coming in for landing. And so that is another thing that's been brought up is like none of this is being considered. All we care about is like getting as much on the ground as we possibly can. And I use we loosely, getting as much on the ground as we possibly can, regardless of what it does to health, wildlife, air traffic control. It is a major issue.
You know, I've got some clips I want to share because I want people to hear from Kevin O'Leary himself. And I know we don't have a lot of time left, so I don't want to beat this thing to death because people can go to X and it's where you get the real news. You're not going to hear information like this from CNN or Fox News, by the way, which is bought and paid for by the Zionist entity. Let's take a flyer on this clip because what I could do, and by the way, it's a 2-hour conversation, but I could scroll down to this 1 minute, 20-second clip, but I played it before. Let's take a flyer on this exchange between Tucker and wannabe billionaire, multi-billionaire Kevin O'Leary about his desire for this Utah data center.
So where does the gas come from, the world's largest data center, the one you're planning in Utah?
The Ruby pipeline there. It's only 17% utilized.
This project is totally energy independent. It takes electricity from nobody else. It creates 100% of its own power.
Yes, that's 100% correct. And that was always the proposal.
Seems like AI will make it possible to know what every American is doing at all times.
I'm not doing nefarious things. I'm not a criminal and I'm not stealing any money from anybody. So
the definition of nefarious changes. I mean, hundreds of thousands of American citizens were sent to concentration camps by Franklin Roosevelt because they were Japanese.
True. So you could have those concerns, but I ask you again, Tucker, would you prefer all of us that are developing these data centers put down our shovels while the Chinese accelerate theirs?
Do I want to become like China in order that we can, quote, beat China? Not at all. The problem with China, from my perspective, is that it surveils its citizens, limits their ability to say what they think, and to oppose existing power. That's why China is bad, I thought, because there are a lot of things about China that are great. But what I don't like about China is the totalitarian approach it has towards its own population. You're making it possible for our government to have the same approach, and our government already does. They're surveilling us at all times. Most Americans don't even know they're being watched. There are license plate readers, there are facial recognition cameras everywhere.
AI and compute and all this stuff, that's a side story. We have to keep all of our tech ahead of theirs, including data centers and everything else. They are our adversary.
I would think, since you disagree with the Chinese way of life, which is pretty civilized in a lot of ways, but the one way in which it's barbaric is that it grants its citizens no real rights. And so I would think that you would be very worried about aping their system, which we are now doing. Total surveillance, it's panopticon in China. We should create our own. Let's take 40,000 acres in Utah and make it possible for the government to know where you are at all times and what you're thinking, listening to you on your phone. Like, we have that.
What you should do is say, I want Kevin O'Leary to succeed. I want him to beat the Chinese in compute power. Then use the laws of the United States to make sure that you keep that compute power in check, to not have it available, to put down my shovel. I don't think people want me to do that. Even the people in Box Elder, the majority of them want me to hold my shovel and start digging.
How do you know that the majority
Because
of
they
people...
voted for it unanimously before the Chinese guys.
There was a referendum among citizens?
We actually went through the whole process that you have to do by their laws and were granted 3-0. Commissioners of the county said, we want to be part
three
of this
people
because
voted. The people of the
they're
county
elected
didn't vote.
officials.
Did he tell a bald-faced lie there about these things being 100% energy independent? I'm calling BS on that.
Yeah, so what they mean by that being energy independent is they're not connected to the grid. And the problem with a lot of these proposals and developments is they're very conceptual. So they will write something on a plan that's not necessarily designed by an engineer, but it'll simply say, here's a box and it's 82 acres and we're reserving that for future power generation. That's kind of what you're dealing with here at the county level. But that is the talking point of a lot of them. They're going to have natural gas powered turbines on their property. Now, they are not connected to the electrical grid, but they are connected to a gas pipeline. Like that is how they get their natural gas. They're going to take their natural gas, electricity creating natural gas turbines, which are like jet engines, by the way. And he's right. They're going to use very little water. And what using very little water means is that it is going to be extremely loud. It's going to be like a jet engine. The one that was going in across the river for me was going to have 16 of those jet engines powered up, running 24 hours a day. And that facility was going to be 23 times the size of a Walmart supercenter. The one that we spoke about earlier, the 2,100 acre one, that was going to be 110 times the size of a Walmart supercenter. And it was going to take more energy than any power plant that's currently in operation in Texas. So yes, I think they are correct in that they're saying we're not going to use electricity that's currently going to residents, but they are using natural gas that could have eventually gone to residents. But as we know, there's
you just hit the nail on the head. Look, let's pretend all of the multi-billionaires, right, the Epstein class, they wanted to corner the silver market, so they all started buying up the silver. It's a free market. They can buy as much silver as they want and use it to their ends, maybe in these data centers. Guess what that does to the price of silver? Look, the energy costs for anyone in a county or a state that has these data centers is going to go through the roof. And that's best case scenario. And by the way, you know what the elephant in the room is here, Matt? None of these people, including Kevin Leary, are telling us exactly what these data centers are for. What do you think these damn things are actually for? Give us your best case scenario and your most dystopic Black Mirror scenario.
right. So something that he brought up, like you mentioned earlier, is trying to beat China. And this is such an old narrative. This is the same narrative as the Cold War. We've got to beat the communists, right? And so because of that, we're now able to go do whatever the government wants in the name of victory over communism, which to me just kind of makes me want to throw up on my shoes a bit to think that I would be falling for something that they already tried to control humanity with. But I think best case scenario, it's what they say. These are data centers to help train AI agents and make everybody's life easier. The problem is, even in that best case scenario, it still has implications of reducing jobs, and all this money that used to flow to individuals now just flows to the tech companies. So even the best case scenario is not a great end game, in my opinion. Worst case scenario, we are at the end. Like we're literally there. We are at the point where everyone is going to relinquish their freedoms to a digital control state. You're going to have to watch what you say on social media. You're going to lose the ability to conduct commerce in cash. You're going to lose the ability to drive faster than the speed limit if you have to for some reason. You're going to lose the ability to put your hands on your steering wheel and go where you want. It's going to be like every post-apocalyptic sci-fi movie you've ever seen where, thinking of like 1982 or Minority Report, or, someone to really read is Philip Dick, an old sci-fi writer who wrote a lot of great short stories that a lot of movies have been based on. But his big thing was what happens when we turn it over to the machines. And, they're saying that we are months, couple of years away from this artificial intelligence surpassing human intelligence and losing total control of it, when all we really have to do is just unplug, pull the cord and go back to the 90s, which were really awesome, by the way. The 90s were great. And there was a lot of cool stuff and even some good music in the 90s. So I think we are rolling down a hill and there's almost not enough people throwing things in front of the tires, and we're just picking up speed, unfortunately. And so for me, all I can do is say, I'm not participating in this. I'm going to resist. I'm not going to comply. I don't want, if there's a third testament written in the Bible after all this is done, I don't want to be in the group that said, you know what, doesn't matter. Let's just go with the flow. I want to be in that small collection of hoodites, if they're written about, that did not comply, that resisted, that remained till the end and stood against the beast, as the Bible says we should.
Amen. All right. So this is so important. I want to show your website, and then I want to ask you a question regarding Trump. Here's the website, rejectbigtech.com, protecting Hood County from the detrimental effects of data centers and power plants. By the way, we probably need a lot more power plants and a lot fewer data centers. You can comment on that if you'd like, but guys, loss of property values, massive draw on water and electricity, pollution of water for sure and air, extreme health concerns, constant noise, poor air quality, enormous industrial buildings, eyesores, the likes of which I don't think anybody has ever seen, low frequency cellular breakdown. These are abominations, and I want to share this with you all. The White House, no games, huh? How about that fake assassination attempt the other night at the journalists' dinner? So this from the White House: if you hurt Americans or are planning to hurt Americans, we will find you and we will kill you. That doesn't pertain to the murderers of Charlie Kirk, though, does it? That doesn't pertain to the Epstein class and the cover-up of the Epstein clients, does it? That doesn't pertain to the bioweapon masquerading as a vaccine, which the military was behind and Trump was gangbusters for. Operation Warp Speed, anyone? This is far, far, far more insidious, folks, in my opinion. And this is the line in the sand. This is the war we were born for. And your government is not on your side. Your local government is not on your side. And it shocks me to no end how easily bought out people are. And maybe that is the divider between real Christians and fake Christians who support the genocide in Gaza, Matt. Because I see knee benders all over X who tell you Tucker Carlson's a traitor, who tell you Thomas Massey's a traitor, who tell you Candace Owens is a traitor. It doesn't add up, brother. It just does not add up. These people are knee benders like Judas and 30 pieces of silver.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, first of all, you could go into the New Testament and you can read all the great things that Jesus said about the Jews. And that's a joke because there was none. He called them, snakes. He talked against them the entire time, that religious Jewish sect that crucified him, actually. And in my opinion, the group that is in Israel right now has nothing to do with the group that Genesis talks about when it says, bless Abraham and you'll be blessed, curse him and you'll be cursed. And there was a lot of pages and a lot of words that happened after that, including the entire New Testament. So this idea that we have to bend to a country that hates us, hates our values, hates Christianity, hates Jesus, is a total joke. And it comes back to that boomer generation, which has been in power for a number of years, and they're the ones making the decisions now. They are very easily duped. They still think the government has their best interests in mind. And my hope is that we are coming to a new age where a younger generation is taking over that is not going to be fooled by these things. That's not going to be fooled by the theater. That's not going to be fooled by a group of converted Jewish people that have moved into a land that they never had the right to and are controlling our foreign policy and controlling our politicians. It is shocking to think of the things that we agree to and what we send over there and how much money we send over there in an effort to have a quote unquote friend in the Middle East. And in my opinion, it doesn't take much reading in the New Testament to get an idea on the position we should be taking. And I think we can take a position that Jesus took and keep these people at arm's length because they don't have our best interests in mind. They literally killed our Savior. And if you look at the background of the people that are currently in that land, It's Turkish. Like they're from Turkey and other places, and they're converted Jews. They are not a bloodline of Abraham. So Jesus was, by the way, it's documented in the New Testament. He was the bloodline of Abraham. So I'm going to support him. He's my savior. He died for my sins. But I'm not going to worship the Pharisees who hated him and killed him. So that's my point.
Well, as we round out the conversation, folks, I just want to share with you the fact of the matter, which is Donald J. Trump has done absolutely nothing to stop Bibi Netanyahu from the genocide in Palestine and Gaza. And furthermore, we've supplied the weapons for that death machine. Additionally, this war in Iran, in my opinion, would not be happening if Trump were not wound so tightly around the finger of Bibi Netanyahu. And lastly, I want to share this with the audience. My wife and I were listening to this last night. We got about 2/3, 3/4 of the way through. I couldn't more highly recommend it. It's a conversation between Candace Owens and journalist Elizabeth Lane. And in this one, as she's done in her podcast many times before, this is why I say y'all must listen to Candace. Candace breaks down the usurpation of the Jewish religion and the state of Israel, which I call the Rothschild state of Israel, rightly so because of the Balfour Declaration. The Rothschilds, look, guys, Israel would not exist where it exists right now and in 1948 were it not for the Rothschilds in the agreement with the royals, the British Crown. And in this conversation, Candace breaks down Jacob Frank, Frankism, and the Frankists who do prey on children, who do practice blood rituals and sacrifice, child sacrifice. As in the days of Noah, folks, these people worship Baal. That's their king. That's the one they worship. Not the Lord of the Bible, not the Lord Jesus Christ. They despise the Lord Jesus Christ. So, in summarization, I would just like to say to everyone listening, if you're truly a Christian and not a knee bender, this is the battle. This is the war you were born for. And I'll give Matt the final word. Matt, thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. Well, the Bible says, prove all things and hold fast to that which is good. So the Bible encourages you to actually look into things. And again, the Bible is not the end all be all. The end all be all is Jesus. The point of the Bible is not to know the Bible, it's to know the one that the Bible testifies of, and that's Jesus. And that's why I believe we will have a footing in this fight, because I believe Jesus, the creator of all things, is behind us. And we can discern truth with a capital T, per the Bible, as Jesus is truth, if we have him on our side. I believe, like I said, he's the maker of all things, and that he is the one that can give us the discernment, give us the plan through his Holy Spirit, if we ask for it, in order to get through these days. And, we all have our different interpretations of the end days and the end times. But as long as you have a constant dialogue with Jesus, you will be led through the wrath, whatever that is, through the tribulation, whatever that is. There's tribulation right now. Doesn't mean we're in the great tribulation. Doesn't mean we're going to see the great tribulation. If people believe in different things, but I do believe that if you can have that relationship, he will help you lead through these days. They are dark, they are scary, but I believe you can have peace like we do in our home. We have extreme peace with all of our children, and the fact that we know, even though it's close to Revelation, we're still having children like it's Genesis. So we don't think you convert everyone, so we thought you might as well birth some new ones, and that's what we're doing still. So we have hope and peace in our home, and I hope that people feel encouraged that there are people out there fighting, and they should join the fight, because it is a worthwhile fight to stand against the Antichrist, the false prophet, the end of days. So we know we ultimately win, and I thank you for having me on, Sean. It was tremendous, and love your show and everything you stand for.
Well, thank you so much, brother, and God bless you and your family. I'm very, very, very glad to hear that your family is at peace and your kids are terrific kids and well adjusted, because I got to tell you, it is a battle in this culture raising children, and a lot of families are broken because of drugs, because of the economy, because of money issues, for many, many reasons, because kids these days are feeling very nihilistic because God has been stolen from them, from the schools. They don't get this information, and therefore they feel hopeless. So many young people all over X are sitting in their cars crying, or sitting at home alone crying for various reasons. They have no friends, they have no future, they're broke, they can't pay their bills as it is today. And I have one last thought I want to share. And Matt, if you got a second, please bear with me. I want your thoughts on this. Hit the red button, folks. Everybody can do something. And if I was to share a glimmer of hope we have, it's this. This great melt up we're seeing, I think, is for this purpose, to fund and pay for these data centers. Guys, instead of, through your 401k in an ETF that you don't even know what's in there, instead of supporting these companies, NVIDIA, Palantir, etc., what if you hit the red button that Catherine Austin Fitts has talked about? Because she said people won't hit the red button if it blows up their portfolio. And as long as they're getting richer, as long as they feel like their 401ks are going up, they'll stand idly by as this enslavement system is rolled out all around you. What if you sell all that crap, do not comply, and go to gold and silver and just wait this thing out, folks? Don't be the exit liquidity or the liquidity they need to build out this enslavement center. That's, I think, the most actionable advice I can give people. Matt, your thoughts, and I'll let you go.
Yeah, well, it's hard to disagree with your theory there. I think that we know the markets are manipulated, all of them, and there is always an agenda when you see it going up really fast or down really fast. And it certainly stinks to be a part of it when you feel like you know which way it should go, and of course they rip it out from under you. I also think land and property is a good investment as well. I've heard people say own property or be property.
I think that's very accurate. And the last thing I'll say, guys, is however you feel about what I just said, just know that there are certain companies you may be invested in directly, knowing about it, owning the stock directly, or companies that you don't even know you own that are in your ETF that your fund is buying for you. And if there's some of these companies that are responsible for this enslavement system that's being built out, you are invested in your own future enslavement and the enslavement of your kids. So hit the red button. I want to thank Matt for coming on. Matt Long, the website again is
rejectbigtech.com. You can also find me on Facebook at DataBad.
All right, brother. Thank you so much for taking an hour out of your time today.
You as well, man. I appreciate you.
All right. I appreciate you. There he goes. Matt Long, rejectbigtech.com. Guys, if you're still with us, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. SGT Report is back up. They don't want you knowing the truth. They want you listening to Fox News or CNN or Kevin O'Leary. Don't do it. Think for yourself. It's a revolutionary idea. And until next time, you can find the real news 24/7 at sgtreport.com, thephaser.com when it's back up, and thelibertymill.com. Thanks so much, guys. God bless you and yours. Bye-bye.
It's very difficult to understand this push by the Trump administration in terms of insisting that disrupt his own country and disrupt the world economy. The movement of fertilizer, the movement of energy, the creation of oils, the production of metals, and to bring all this stuff to a standstill or to a destabilized, potentially collapsing position in order to stop Iran from having what he says is a nuclear weapon, which we've been told they've been 6 months away from creating for 30 years now. The whole thing doesn't make sense.